Hi guys, welcome to this session in Microsoft Excel. In this module, I want to go through the 10 top most common functions used in Excel. So I've got them listed down here and I'm going to go through them one at a time. So first one, the most common function is the sum function, and there's several different ways of doing this. The sum function can be accessed up the top here on the home tab. You just click the sum function and it will grab the list that it can see. As long as there's no gaps in that, you just still need to check it on the formula bar and then tick or press enter. I tend to tick, and you can pull that across, and that's how that would work. Hashes just mean there's not enough space to show you the answer, so you click on this little triangle in the corner there and double click on any dividing line on any column and it will do the whole sheet. Now if I do that again over here, sum, it's looking left, check it, click the tick, and then it widens it across like that. Now I can get my little black cross ready to pull it down, but if I double click that, that will fill that down. I just need to widen that one column at the end, and then that opens up. So that's the sum function. Now if I delete that for a minute, I could use the key command, so I could highlight everything like that. The key command is Alt equals. When you do Alt equals, it just does the same as clicking the sum button. You can also get the sum function, as you can get all the other functions from the formulas tab on the ribbon, and you can also access it through the FX feature there. So that's the sum function. It's the only one, by the way, that has a key command, and if you do actually point to the sum button, it gives you the key command there. Look, Alt equals. So that's the sum one. Next one is the average. The average for these figures, that lives in multiple places as well, but I'm going to go for this little drop down, average. Now it's grabbing everything in this list, including the total, so I need to edit this formula. That only wants to come down to B9. So B9, and tick that, and that comes up with a 403.50. If I highlight these figures just to check that, down the bottom here you have the same score, so that's good. I can pull that one across right over. Then we've got the count and the count A function. So count just counts how many numbers is in a list, whereas a count A function would count numbers and text. So let's do the count. And again, that is over on the drop down, count numbers. But when you click it, it actually just puts the word count in there. And again, I need to change the reference back to 9. It's only coming down to 9. Otherwise, I'll get inaccurate answers. So there are 8 items in there, and if I highlight those again down the bottom here, you've got 8, so that's correct. And then I can pull that one across. The count A function is going to count the same list, but I'll show you the difference. And I'm going to type this. I'm going to type equals count A, and I'm pressing tab to get the brackets. I'm going to select this list, selecting it, and then I don't need to close the bracket because there's only one function there. The computer will see that. I'll click the tick and I get 8. But the difference here is if I start typing text, it still counts it. It counts both texts and numbers. I'll just undo that, Control Z to get rid of that. So now we're coming on to these lookup functions. So they're probably the most common ones. Then you're coming into lookups. You've got VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, XLOOKUP. So V stands for vertical, H for horizontal, X doesn't stand for anything that I know of. So before I do that, I want to do like a little data validation list, and I'm going to do these down here. So if I click into this cell, color it up so you can see where I am, I'll do a little list. So if I go to data, across to data validation, and select the list option, so my list is going to be, in this example, just these people. So just down to Janet, that'll be okay. Click OK. I've got my little drop down list. So I'll select Steve in there. So if I get here and I do my VLOOKUP first of all, which stands for vertical, equals VL, and then I can press my tab key to get the function. The lookup value is Steve, comma, I'll highlight the table, comma, And I want the second column in, which is January. So 2, comma, and then an exact match, 0, which is false. Close the bracket, click the tick, and I should get that to work. Comes up with the figure 212, which is correct. Just need to format that to pounds. So if I pick somebody else from this list, Dave 127, Dave 127. So it's coming across there. And then what I have to do on this one, if I wanted all of the months, basically I would have to copy the months down here. I'll just copy these. You can do that with your key like so. Just copy that, control key, drop that down. So now if I wanted to pull that across, what I'd have to keep doing is I'd have to $ this B12, and then I'd have to lock the cell range and then change that to a 2. So that's a bit of a long-winded way of doing it. So what I tend to do is if I highlight this data, highlight that area, I'm going to call that data, press enter, and then this I'm going to call person. You must press enter when you do that. So I'm going to change this formula so it looks at person. So just type person there. I'm going to change that bit. So it says data. So now I've got names, so I don't need to worry about $signs. Still get the same answer, but when I pull it across, it's going to come up with the same thing because I've got to change the number each time. So I'll have to change that to a 3, tick that, change that to a 4, and so on and so on. Or I can use other functions to do that, like the columns function, or I could just have a list of numbers where I might just get it to refer to that. But I'm going to leave it at that at the moment. But that's basically the VLOOKUP. I'll just leave that there. Now, if I do another list, data validation, so data validation, and pick the months for this one, any value, change that to list, pick the months as the data validation list all the way across to December, change that color to something else, go orange on this one. So if I select a month there, I'll select Jan so we can see it. The HLOOKUP is we'll be looking at rows. So VLOOKUP is vertical, it looks at columns, but HLOOKUP would look at rows. So if I have that there, and I'm looking at January, so basically it's going to be equals HLOOKUP, press tab. So I'm looking at Jan, comma, I'm looking at this area, comma, I want row 2, comma, 0 exact match. So the layout is exactly the same. Clicking the tick on that, get 212. 212 is January, and if I change that to February, 434, February 434. If I change that to a 3, so the same thing is going to have to happen here. If I put that to 3, that'll be the February, the 3rd row, February being the 1st, that being the 2nd. So 222, that's correct, that's working that. Now XLOOKUP, I'm going to go for this first option again, so I'm going to be looking at person. So if I do XLOOKUP, so equals XL, press tab to get it. Still need to look at that. I want to look at that person, comma, I'm looking at the list, so it's lookup array. This is the list of people, comma. Now the return array for this is everything else. So I want all of this for that person. So for Dave, basically. if I just tick that, it just drops everything in. It's not formatted to pounds, but it just drops everything in like so, the whole row. So a VLOOKUP, for example, I had to do this, change the number 2 to a 3 to a 4 all the way across, and I could have, like I said, do a slightly different formula which would have made it a little bit more automated, but the XLOOKUP just drops a whole lot in. So that's XLOOKUP. Now index and match is a very, very common function where you want to pull information depending on what you select from these sort of options. You've got a data area, so I'm just going to highlight this and call it area. So the match function I need to use first off. So I think I'll get rid of some of these because they're getting in the way. So the match function does this. If I go equals match, press tab. So you're looking for, I'm looking for Dave, person, comma, in this list. And I need an exact match. So comma 0. So it's going to tell me the position, i.e. a number, that Dave is in that list. If I tick that, so he's in the second position, Dave. Now if I go for February, so if I equals match again, so this time I'm clicking on Feb, comma, and I want the position of February in that list, comma 0 exact match. Tick, that should come back with a 2 as well. So 2, 2. Now the index function needs those coordinates to bring back the figure on here. So if I go equals index, press tab. So the area is the green area, which I've called area. That's the area, comma, using these coordinates. So that one, comma, and then that one. Tick. So that should give me 222. So February, second one down, 222. And then you could maybe highlight the whole of this area, go to conditional formatting, manage rules, and edit this rule. So let's have a look at this one. So basically what I've got there is B23. So this is B25. So if I change that to do it to a 5, see what happens there. B25, click OK again, and then it highlights the one that's picking up. Now it'll also highlight, that one is not an accurate one, but it just gives you the idea where that's coming from. So if I select Steve for February, there's Steve, there's February, that's the index and match, basically working like that. Now the next one after that is the trim function and the concatenate. I'll do the concatenate first. So you could do this, equals concatenate. Now you can either type concatenate and get the function, or concat, or you can use this sort of symbol. So if I go equals and then click on that cell that says Steve, so it says person, and then do a little and sign, that's the concatenate symbol, and then I'll do a space with quotes, space bar, quotes, Steve earned. So in fact, before I close that, so Steve earned, then a space, you need to do a space, and then I need to do another concatenation symbol, concatenation there, and that. Now let's tick this. Steve earned that. So if I format that to pounds, that isn't formatted to pounds. So what I need to do in there before I do the and, so before the sort of quotes, I need to do the pound sign. So that will go in there. And then if I tick that, it now has the pound sign on there, and that's concatenate. Now, if you have a cell that has a space in it, like that, you can use the trim function, trim, to get rid of spaces. So it's equals trim, press tab, click on that. That's all I need to do. And then that will get rid of any spaces that's in there. So there'll be no spaces in that. It's quite hard to show you that one. But for example, if you're doing an array formula that spills the formula down, it comes up with a spill error because there's something in it. If I can go, I've called that data, but let me see if I can call this something. I'll just call this total. And then if I put a space there, and then if I go equals total, I'll just repeat that. But it should come up with a spill error because there is a space in there. So if I put trim first, trim, open that, close the bracket at the end. If I do Control Shift and Enter, that then clears off that space. So it's quite hard to show the trim function, but quite often you do get data coming from non-Microsoft sources with leading spaces. Lookups don't see that leading space, so you don't get the actual information that you're trying to look up. It looks the same, but it isn't actually the same because there's a blank space in front of the word that you're trying to look up. So the trim function would be used to clear that off, and then you've got a clear cell with just the word or the code in it. So that's all I want to talk about in this little video, the most popular functions in Excel and a little example of each of those. So hopefully that video was of use. Thank you for your time, and I'll catch you on the next one.